Okay, for this part of the real world context is actually quite easy. Some of you don't even need any explanation. So in this part, we are dealing with currency exchange. I'm just using these two examples for some simple explanation. So there is another category of currency exchange that I won't be doing it here yet. Okay, so this one is just a basic idea of currency exchange. So when do we need currency exchange? When you are going overseas. So like, for example, the most basic one will be when you want to go JB, when your parents want to go JB, your parents will need to change Singapore dollar to ringgit. So the changing, right, has a rate to follow. Okay, so basically we talk about like every 100 Sing dollar, how much ringgit can it get you? Okay, so then what about if you want to change back that currency, that's also possible. So sometimes you got extra foreign currency. So for example, when you go JB, then your parents didn't manage to spend all the money. So when they come back to Singapore, they may want to change it to Singapore dollar. Okay, so in the real money exchange, right, there will be something that we call a buying column and a selling column. So I'm not going into that yet. So I just need you to understand the basic kind of changing money, which you can use your primary school knowledge of 1 unit equivalent to how many dollar, that kind of idea. Okay, so if you look at example 4, okay, Linda is going to Hong Kong for a competition. So the rate that she is given is this one. So how do you interpret the rates, right? So in case some of you didn't know how to interpret the rates. So that means, right, for every 100 Sing dollar, he is going to get Hong Kong dollar 540. So every piece of $100 in Singapore dollar will get her 540 Hong Kong dollar. Okay, so what is she planning, right? She's planning to change 600 into Hong Kong dollar. So what does that mean? That means she actually has 6 pieces of this. So she actually gets 6 times of this rate. Can see? So she actually gets 6 times of this rate. So which means, right, if she got $600, the Hong Kong dollar that she's getting will be 6 times of the rate, 6 times of the 540. So that's how the answer comes about. Okay, so now the second part, she is already back from the trip, and she found herself having 936 Hong Kong dollar left. So in Singapore, she's not able to spend the Hong Kong dollar. Okay, no one in Singapore will accept the Hong Kong dollar for buying food, for buying drinks. So it is a must to change back to Singapore dollar. So she will need to find the equivalent rate of Singapore dollar. So what do we mean by equivalent rate? So we want to know how much is 1 unit of Singapore dollar worth. So this is what I'm going to do. So my habit is usually like this. So sorry, I think just now if I mentioned something wrongly. So I want to change it to Singapore dollar. So now my objective is, right, every Hong Kong dollar, how much can it change into Sing dollar? So I want to find the rate of Hong Kong dollar. That means how much 1 Hong Kong dollar can bring me in Singapore dollar. So that's my purpose. So I'm going to divide 540. So I'm going to divide 540 on each side. So when you divide, essentially you get a fraction. 540 Hong Kong dollar, if you divide by 540, you will get 1 Hong Kong dollar. So the interpretation from here, will mean that every Hong Kong dollar is going to give you this amount of Singapore dollar. So you can actually just leave it in the fraction, or you can leave it in the decimal, because that is not your final answer. So this is the rates of Hong Kong dollar. How much one Hong Kong dollar helps you to change into Singapore dollar. So in order to answer this part of the question, so I'm going to find out about 936. So if every dollar is will bring you a fraction of 5/27 Sing dollar, then the amount of Sing dollar here will be 5/27 times 936. So every one Hong Kong dollar can give you that much of Sing dollar, but you got 936. So from here, if you calculate, you will get, it will be a lot of decimal, so you can give to 2 dp. So 2 dp is something like the nearest cent. So in the real world context, we usually do it in the nearest sense. But sometimes in a question, they may not want in the nearest cent. They may ask you to round off to nearest 10 cent. They may ask you to round off to the nearest dollar, nearest $10. So you got to look for the accuracy. And because in this topic, you're going to involve like different currency, you need to write the units. It's very important you write the symbol for Sing dollar, the symbol for Hong Kong dollar. You cannot just be writing something like this. Something like this has no meaning. I wouldn't know what does that 100 means. I wouldn't know what does that 540 means. Okay, so you must make it a point to write the units clearly. Without unit, the currency exchange doesn't really work out. Okay, the next one is the same idea here. The next one, every US dollar can be changed into $1.45 for Singapore. That means if you have one US dollar, that's equivalent to $1.45, our local money, Singapore dollar. Okay, so now if you got $200, that means you got 200 pieces of this. So the amount of Singapore dollar that you can receive will be 1.45. You will get 200 times of this because you got 200 pieces of that $1. So that gives you 290 Sing dollar. Okay, so the next one, we are going to change. So if instead, right, we got 580 Sing dollar, 580 Sing dollar, how can I change it to US dollar? How can I change it to US dollar? Okay, we can do the same thing like what we did in the previous question. I'm going to find the rates for one Singapore dollar. Okay, I can find the rates of one Singapore dollar. So I will find the rates of one Singapore dollar by doing this. So I divide both sides by 1.45. So that's how I get the rates of one Singapore dollar. Okay, so if you want to, you can press it up. You can press it up. You can press out the fraction here. So if you press it out, you will get a lot of decimal. Okay. You try to write as many as you can. You will get a lot of decimal. You write as many as you can. Or else, if you are lazy to write so many, I will just leave it in fraction. Okay. Why is it okay to leave it in fraction, right? Because this is not going to be your final answer. It's just your intermediate answer. So now if I got 580 of this, you just need to multiply 580, which gets you a US dollar 400. You can do it in such a way if you want to, or else you can have another thinking. So for part B, right, you can do another thinking. Okay, that means you still use this exchange rate. So if you want to change your 580 Singapore dollar, you can think about it this way. Every 1.45 will give US $1. So you can think it this way. Then how many, you can think in this way, how many $1.45 are there in 580? How many $1.45 can you find in $580? You can think about it in this way. So if you think about it in this way, your working is actually shorter. So if I want to get this, to me, right, I just need to divide. Because I'm trying to find out how many groups of $1.45 are there in $580. So I can just do a divide. However, you must remember to put it with the symbol. So how many $1.45 are there in $580? So if you think of it this way, you can directly get the answer. You don't have to go through the rates for one $1, then you go and find how much you can get. So it's up to you. Some students prefer the first method, some students prefer the second method, which also means, right, here I can also do the same thing. So for the part B on this question, right, I can skip the rates for Hong Kong dollar. So in fact, I can choose to think this way. So I can choose to think something like every 540 will give Singapore $100. So how many, then you might want to think, so how many 540 in this? You can think about it in this way. So if you think about it in this way, then the amount that you can change will be 936 divided by 540. So that gives you the Singapore dollar. So you will still get the same answer. So you will get, so every 540 will give you 100. After you found out how many, I think I need some space. Okay, let me just erase this. So in this case, you might need to think, how many groups of 540? Okay, let me write smaller. Okay, so you find out how many first by dividing by 540, and each group is going to give you $100. Each group is going to give you $100. So from here, you will still get the same amount, 173.33. So you can do by the grouping idea, okay? Or then you do not need to find the rates for one Hong Kong dollar. So there are two ways of doing this kind of question. You can find the rates, or you can think about how many groups when you're doing such question. Okay, just don't be careless. Take note of your notation, because if your notation is wrong, then you are doing the wrong exchange rate. Okay, so take note of the different dollar, different currency in the question.